heart of Texas, LifeTalk. Here's your host, Mark Crutcher.
Hello and welcome to LifeTalk for December 2011. I'm Mark Crutcher, and lurking in the shadows are Cherie Johnson, Johnny Hunter, and Troy Newman. Again, Father Frank and Janet will not be joining us this month, but we will update you on that situation. But first, Alan Ackles is here with this month's LifeTalk news. Alan?
All right, thank you, Mark. In California, an abortion clinic with a long history of botched abortions has closed. The Eve Surgical Center in Los Angeles was originally operated by notorious abortionist James McMahon, who claimed that he invented the partial birth abortion procedure. Following his 1995 death, the facility was sold to Christopher Dotson, an 80-year-old abortionist with at least 63 civil suits against him in Los Angeles County alone. In 1992, the State Medical Board had disciplined Dotson for causing the death of Ramona Jackson. However, the board ignored the death of Orion Shevin in 2005, despite a $1 million settlement against Dotson in the case. In a similar development, a Missouri abortion facility has announced that it's closing after 36 years in operation. Planned Parenthood of Kansas and Missouri made the announcement that closing the Jefferson City Center, which had scaled back to opening just 2 days a week, will cut expenses at a time when Planned Parenthood is consolidating its locations nationwide. Pro-lifers credit the decision to years of prayers and constant pro-life vigils at the clinic. And meanwhile, Operation Rescue is reporting that the only abortion facility in Santa Fe, New Mexico, will close by Christmas. Abortionist Lucia Sace, who admits to having done thousands of abortions during her 35 years in business, posted an ad in the New Mexican newspaper announcing her retirement, and that the closure will leave Santa Fe without a freestanding abortion mill and will reduce the number in the entire state to only 5. Well, the state of Texas recently enacted a law requiring that women considering abortion must be given the opportunity to see an ultrasound of their babies 24 hours prior to the procedure. In an apparent response, abortionist Neil Adam Polk quit his job at Planned Parenthood, where he had been killing babies for almost 13 years. Sources say the 75-year-old abortionist did not want the extra workload associated with the sonograms. This came on the heels of 12 other Planned Parenthood closings in Texas after the legislature took away their taxpayer funding. Well, 2 years ago, the Tennessee General Assembly passed a law handing over family planning responsibilities to county health departments. Now, Shelby County, the final county in the state where Planned Parenthood was still receiving taxpayer dollars, announced that it was awarding its contract to another organization. The decision cost Planned Parenthood nearly $400,000 and marks the first time in 35 years that the abortion giant will not be receiving any taxpayer money in the state. In Virginia, a Democrat candidate for a school board has been convicted of assault for ramming a pro-lifer with her car during this year's National March for Life. According to court records, Sharice S.B. Glassman was driving out of an alley near the Supreme Court building on the day of the march when a woman stepped in front of the car, yelling at her to stop because of the crowd. Witnesses say that Glassman just laughed and kept moving forward until she hit the woman, who suffered 2 herniated discs from the impact. And finally, a very disturbing video has surfaced in Wisconsin of the staff at a Milwaukee abortion clinic waiting for an ambulance to pick up a woman injured at the facility. In the video, employees of affiliated medical services can be seen laughing, dancing, and even doing the limbo as the woman is taken away by ambulance. Also in the video, one abortion clinic staffer can be heard threatening nearby pro-lifers by saying, "You're lucky it isn't you in the hospital." According to reports, this is at least the 3rd incident of ambulance calls to that clinic this year. Alan Ackles here for LifeTalk News. You can get daily news updates by logging on to ProLifeAmerica.com. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Alan. All right. Listen, before we go any further, let's bring people up to date on what's happening with Father Frank. And unfortunately, nothing's happening. The same thing that was happening last month is what's happening this month.
Which in and of itself is a story. I mean, Father Frank has been stuck in Amarillo for over 10 weeks now.
Right.
He's
doing
not
nothing.
He's in a convent. I think he's saying mass for these nuns once a day. But other than that, he's stuck there. And there's been no formal charges brought against him, no real accusations. No. He's just literally, I call it solitary confinement. He's essentially being incarcerated in the middle of nowhere. I try
to talk to him at least every day or so to kind of keep his spirits up, and his spirits are amazingly good, as I've said before. But there's been no movement, and this guy Zurich, the most amazing thing is they're still not talking. Zurich will still not talk to Father Frank. And not only that, as we talked about before, they've got this, vicar of clergy that's supposed to be the liaison between priest and the diocese. He's been instructed by the bishop not to have any contact with Father Frank. This whole thing is just...
Yeah, that's why I call it solitary confinement. I mean, think about it. The Bishop of Zurich called Father Frank home to his home diocese in Amarillo, stuck him out in the middle of nowhere, 50 miles outside of Amarillo, Texas, and has not called him, has not talked to him, has not met with him at all.
It's amazing.
And I'll tell you, here's something that's worse. And I just got back from the International Pro-Life Youth Conference in Los Angeles, and there were over 700 young people. Now, Father Pavone was supposed to be the keynote speaker and had been booked in over a year ago when this conference was first started and penciled out. Well, these kids realized that Father Pavone wasn't going to be there, so they actually wrote a personalized letter and overnighted it, not once but twice, to Bishop Zurich. And Bishop Zurich didn't have the courtesy to return their call or letter or phone call.
And what would have been the harm, if all he's doing is sitting out there, what would have been the harm in Zurich saying, yeah, Father Frank can take a day off and go out there and do this speech that he was committed to a year ago for all these kids? There would have been obviously no harm in that. But he not only did he not let him go, he would not even, like you said, would not even respond. Wouldn't even tell these kids, no, I'm not going to let him.
Well, has he returned any of your phone calls?
Nothing.
I've left dozens of messages for Bishop Zurich or any one of his staff to please call me and explain why Father Pavone can't be out fighting on behalf of the children. Bishop Zurich says he wants the pro-life movement to be blessed, Priests for Life to be blessed, but yet is doing everything to the contrary.
Absolutely. Well,
this priest is doing nothing that bucks this bishop at this point, right?
Nothing. He's doing everything he's supposed to do, and he's been totally subservient, I guess is the right word, obedient. He's done everything that a priest is supposed to do. And they've just got him sitting out there cooling his heels. The most effective Catholic priest in the United States on the abortion issue, bar none. Nobody else is even in that league. And he's taken out of the game for absolutely no reason. And it's a scandal. I honestly believe that's what it is.
And I just want to have a little caveat here because I've been accused often of being Catholic bashing when speaking against Bishop Zurich. Listen, 8 years of Catholic school, altar boy, been in the Catholic Church my whole youth. I adore Father Frank. He's a great friend. I've got excellent friends that are Catholics. Much of my family is still Catholic, even though I'm Presbyterian. This is not Catholic bashing.
No, it's not.
This is just simply speaking the truth. I don't think that God wants us to remove our brains and our tongues when becoming a Catholic. In any, exactly, in any church. Right. And it's important to speak the truth about Bishop Zurich. We need to continue to pray for him. Pray for Father Frank that this gets resolved immediately, because the sooner Father Frank is back on the battlefield saving babies, the sooner we're going to get this whole abortion thing ended.
I tell you what, those younger generation will never forget they were denied their keynote speaker, a great priest.
And they all love the younger kids. You love Father Frank more than the rest of us do. So so for him to be taken out of that situation is
some of these kids came all the way from Ireland to see Father Frank.
Right. It's an obscene situation. But anyway, we're going to continue fighting for him and just keep praying that this thing is going to be resolved quickly, because it is costing babies their lives, and that's the main thing that we need to continue to focus on. What happens to me? What happens to you? None of us matter. What happens is what happens to those babies, what matters is what happens to those babies, and that's where this thing is such a scandal. Anyway, let's get on. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. One thing I wanted to bring up here that was pretty interesting: the Discovery Channel has a documentary out, and they ran it last week for the first time, but it's going to be run several more times, I understand, called "When Does Life Begin?" Now, when you're dealing with things like the Discovery Channel, you're really nervous when you hear something like this is coming out. Pretty interesting. This is from the documentary. The genetic point of view says that life begins exactly when fertilization occurs, or when cells form the human zygote, the few sperm and egg cells that develop into a human. Any sooner means these cells are still part of the parents. According to this view, after fertilization, the cells already have coordinated their behavior in a unique new organism.
That's awesome.
That is amazing.
Well, the Discovery Channel tells the truth, and of course it aligns with science and medicine and technology and philosophy and Christianity.
Boy, don't you know the pro-aborts have gone berserk over that?
Well, are they going to do anything to keep it from being aired? Do we know?
It's already been aired once, and I'm sure it will be again.
They will, because I think there's a cognitive disconnect, because they can actually believe two separate things being true at the same time.
Yeah, right.
You see them talk about this all the time. They say, well, this is a beautiful baby as long as it's a wanted baby.
Yeah.
And if it's not a wanted baby, then it's just a clump of cells. It's a blob of tissue that can be flushed down the
The
toilet.
documentary is about wanted children. That's
All
probably
right.
what it is.
We've got a situation that's getting a lot of attention up in New Jersey from us, not so much from the secular media, at the University of Medicine and Dentistry in New Jersey, where they are now attempting to force nurses to participate in abortion.
This is a dentist school?
It's medicine and dentistry of New Jersey. And they're trying to force people to participate in abortions against their conscience. And, of course, we know this is a big deal on the national level. Obama is trying to force people to do abortion because they know the great irony here is, like I wrote in that book I wrote, Access, the great irony here is what's destroying the abortion industry is choice. Doctors and nurses and other medical professionals saying, I'm not going to participate in this.
Right.
And as we know, abortion clinics continue to close all over this country every month. We reported on the news today some more, and they continue to do this every month. And the number one reason is because they can't get enough staff.
That's right.
They have plenty of customers. They can't get enough staff to staff these places, and they have to close. And now they're closing because they're losing federal funds.
So it's okay that they can be forced to do it? Is there anything that...
Not only that, force us to pay for it. Everybody here through Obamacare.
Force you to do it, force you to pay for it. Now, did you hear what Nancy Pelosi said the other day? She was bashing Catholics because they have this conscience thing.
Right.
That she's so upset that people are opting out of abortion. See, abortion has become almost a mandated religious right in America.
Yeah, it is.
And the people who are forcing abortion on us, and make no mistake about it, that's what's happening. This is forced abortion emerging in America. If they can't do it by choice, they're going to force you to do it.
Well, these nurses have filed a suit up there against this, and they're being represented by our friends at the Alliance Defense Fund, who we've had on here many times. But I mean, this is unconscionable. And now the hospital's position is now, well, some of these nurses aren't forced to actually do the killing. They just have to prep the patient and get the patient ready, and then oversee the patient when it's over.
Or put the baby back together.
They don't have to. So therefore, their conscience shouldn't be pricked by this.
So the Nazi guards that were just escorting the Jews into or the train conductors that were bringing the Jews to the Holocaust, the camps. That's okay. They couldn't opt out of that either.
I'm sorry. What are the consequences if they say we're not doing it? We refuse. Do they lose their job, license, everything?
They're threatening to fire them.
They'll get their license.
Right.
You know, I know they filed a lawsuit, but one of the things I've always said, there are two distinct entities in America that are keeping abortion open and available. One is the bureaucrats, the medical boards, et cetera, that should be acting on these despicable abortionists. And the second one is courts.
Right.
They filed a lawsuit.
Well, the pro-abortion knew that. That's Roe versus Wade. They knew they couldn't get it in the political process, so they'd do it through the judicial system.
You know.
Yeah. Anyway, Johnny, you were going to.
Yes, I was going to say I'm glad to see them go on the offensive because a lot of times Christians like to take the defensive mode and we'll just lay back and don't do anything and all those. But it's really time to get on the offense. When these people start doing this mess, I think we're getting to the point where the people who are even trying to force people, these are the folks that need to go to jail. I'm serious.
Right.
These are the folks who need to go to jail because they are.
Okay, speaking of people who need to go to jail, Kathleen Sebelius, our Health and Human Services Secretary, former governor of Kansas. It's now been revealed. We uncovered all the dirty little secrets that while Planned Parenthood was under investigation in the state of Kansas by our former Attorney General, Phil Klein, he eventually filed 107 criminal charges, 23 of which were felonies. Now, those felonies had to be dismissed just last week because Kathleen Sebelius oversaw the shredding of key evidence in this case.
And, you know,
right down the drain.
This started with our Child Predator Project. You know,
That's right.
You know, and I told Phil one time, I said, I'm sorry I cost you the Attorney General's job in the state of Kansas. He said, listen, if doing the right thing cost me my political career, so be it. So he's a stand-up guy. And
he's one of the true heroes of the pro-life movement, particularly in politics.
Right.
Well, in front and behind. But here we have an entity that's under criminal investigation, indictments filed, criminal proceedings come all the way to the pre-trial hearings. And all of a sudden, the district attorney can't find the evidence. And it was shredded both in the Kansas Department of Health and Environment office and in Stephen Six's Attorney General's office, which Kathleen Sebelius appointed. She oversaw this. She needs to go to jail.
Didn't she say she didn't know they were being investigated?
Actually,
yeah. This is the most preposterous thing. We're sitting. I was thinking the other day, while we're sitting here, you and I and Ed Zielinski when he was here, we're providing the Attorney General of Kansas all these documents,
right.
And they're preparing this stuff, and we had caught them red-handed protecting these pedophiles up there, Planned Parenthood protecting these pedophiles. Meanwhile, while we're doing that, she's over there overseeing the shredding of all the documents that would have convicted them.
And says now she didn't even know that they were under investigation.
It's unbelievable.
If you had a pulse in the state of Kansas or anywhere near there, you knew
right.
Planned Parenthood was under
right.
investigation. And I want to go back and say this whole thing started because of the child protection racket,
child predator
program that you instigated.
Right.
The files that Phil Klein was obtaining were on women and girls who were under 18 who were getting abortions that were not being reported to the KDH&E.
I got a feeling if he was under investigation and you were shredding some documents, we might be seeing you behind bars.
I'd be behind bars.
Well, you look at what happened with Penn State. Here we have a whole coach now that's been fired, a whole legacy that's been put down the drain because they kept their mouth shut over somebody who was a predator over that little boy.
Well, I was going to bring that up later in the show, Johnny, but we'll just talk about it right now because this whole situation with Penn State has made me absolutely livid, given what we know through our child predator project that we did all the undercover investigation on. I'm telling you, whatever's happened at Penn State is nothing compared to Planned Parenthood. Right. Why aren't they going to the National Office of Planned Parenthood and dragging Cecile Richards out in handcuffs and leg irons? I don't understand it. The woman ought to be in jail over what these people are doing.
And it happens every single day. That
it's happening as we're sitting here.
11, 12, 13-year-olds being drug in there, getting
right.
abortions against their will sometimes, and by the person that impregnated them is probably 25, 45, who knows?
Or the mother of the
boyfriend,
or
her
the
boyfriend.
We had a case we're just dealing with right now. A woman takes her 12-year-old to have an abortion, claims that the girl says and the mother says she was pregnant by a 14-year-old boy down the street. Turns out she's pregnant by the mother's boyfriend who's 37. And the mother is there knowing full well that this guy is raping her daughter and she's there protecting him.
Right.
And Planned Parenthood's doing the abortion and sending them out the door and not saying anything.
And don't forget, in most states, sexual activity under the age of 14 is actually illegal because they cannot emotionally consent to sex.
Under 17 in Texas and are 16 in most states.
They're just not mentally aware enough to consent to sexual activity. So therefore, every incident is a possible crime or more than likely a crime and needs to be investigated. That's why these Planned Parenthood doctors, school teachers are mandatory reporters. Right. And the government is just looking the other way while our children are being raped and mutilated.
And they're taking money out of our pockets to give to the people who are protecting the predators. And, you know, this thing continues to grow on. But I'm telling you, Johnny, you're absolutely right. This thing with Penn State has just, I'm sitting there watching that thing, I'm getting madder and madder because what's happening up there is the right thing.
Yeah, and the people are outraged, the people are upset, and they're upset because they covered it up.
Right. They didn't report.
They covered it up.
Right. They didn't
report. They covered it up, and Planned Parenthood doing the same mess and getting away with it?
Well, not only they're doing the same stuff, all 50 states, they're doing the same thing, but they're doing it on a much greater scale. Mm-hmm. Let's say you come up with, eventually there's 100 potential victims in that case.
That's the number they're talking about.
Up in Pennsylvania. Let's say there's 100. We're talking about millions. Mm-hmm. There's 53 million babies been killed so far. Right. 30% of those have been done on girls who are under their state's age of consent. And we know that right now the national statistics show that 60 to 80% of all girls beneath the age of 15 who get pregnant were impregnated by adults. Statutory rape is what's driving our teen sex problem in this country. And Planned Parenthood is the one that's covering it up. And we're talking about millions of potential victims here,
right.
And nobody's saying a thing.
Well, in Kansas, the case we just talked about, 90 of the files, all of them underage, not one of them reported. Right. And that's only for a segment, I think a 6-month segment in 1 year, 2003.
Well, didn't we find, I'm trying to remember if Kansas was one of the states we found that there never had been a report? If I'm not mistaken, that's what when Ed and I looked at that.
Right. There had never been a report until it was starting to be investigated by Phil Klein.
Right. It's not obscene. It's obscene what's happening here.
She needs to be. We got crooks up there in the administration.
Oh, you think?
There's a whole bunch of them.
What was your first clue, Johnny? It is outrageous what's going on up there, and this thing with Penn State just kind of. I'm sitting there watching this on television, and I can just feel my blood pressure going up and up and up.
Isn't it interesting? Oftentimes, God shows us exactly what's happening in one case, like the Penn State deal, to show us exactly what's happening all over.
Right, right, yeah.
What's your thinking behind people not getting outraged about that, about the Planned Parenthood thing?
You know, we've talked about this before here, Cherie. There seems to be an almost, and we've certainly seen it in Kansas, there's this kind of Svengali-like hold that Planned Parenthood has on the American judicial system.
And
the legislative system.
And the American people, too.
I think they're losing it, though. I mean, we're
I think
starting to
they are.
defund them. They're starting to lose the shine.
Yep.
They're starting to lose the respect. And they're being charged with 58 crimes in Kansas. We get them convicted. That's it.
And that'll be a model for use in other states.
I'm hoping so.
Just some like some of the stuff that's happening here in Texas and in other states.
Right.
Those things can then be expanded because there's nothing going on in any state in this country vis-a-vis Planned Parenthood that's not going on in every state. So when you see these people doing illegal things and crooked things and immoral things and things that harm children or whatever, they're doing it everywhere. These are not isolated incidences. And if anything else, our Child Predator Project proved that 91% out of the 906 calls we made, we connected 813 of them. 91% of them agreed to help what they perceived to be a 13-year-old statutory rape victim conceal this from the authorities and from her parents. 91%. So don't think that this is an anomaly, because it's not. This is everywhere. And what I'm hoping is that this Penn State thing might cause even the people who aren't involved in this to start looking at that and saying, well, wait a minute, wasn't Planned Parenthood caught doing the same thing? I mean, you know, actually doing much worse than what went on up there. So I'm hoping that'll, you know.
I don't know if people associate it. You know, they'll go, oh, that's abortion, that's another issue. You know, I don't know. I hope.
Well, it's the abortion distortion factor. Anytime you introduce abortion into something, all the rules go out the window, and that's the reason Planned Parenthood gets away with this. But, you know, we've seen and again, I'm not Catholic, none of us here are Catholic, but the Catholic Church has been raked over the coals over this pedophile priest situation, as well they should, given some of the circumstances that have happened. But the same people that are raking the Catholic Church over the coals over that, then when it comes to Planned Parenthood, just look out the window. Oh, that's different. How is that different?
Because it's abortion. It's their baby. It's so to speak, their baby, their pet project.
Can't afford to say anything negative about abortion. We'll be right back. On a recent liberal talk show, a guest was attacking the pro-life movement, saying that our hidden agenda was to turn America into a theocracy in which non-believers would be rounded up and burned at the stake. Naturally, this quickly morphed into a discussion about all the harm Christianity has done over the centuries in the name of God. In no time, this guy was whipped into a frenzy, talking about how Hitler was a Catholic who not only envisioned the Nazi Holocaust, but actually carried it out. The only real flaw in his argument is that Hitler was not a Catholic. He was simply born to parents who were Catholic. Read any legitimate biography about him, and you will see that he was virtually devoid of any sort of spirituality, and that the closest thing to religion in his life was a disturbing fascination with occultism. The reality is that the 20th century was by far the most violent time in the history of the world, and the left wants us to conveniently ignore the fact that the overwhelming majority of the butchery was carried out by self-admitted atheists and or non-Christians. In the case of World War II, while the Nazis were terrorizing Western Europe, atheist Joe Stalin was carrying out a genocide against his own countrymen that made Hitler look like a bumbling amateur. Meanwhile, the Japanese were slaughtering Chinese, Indonesian, Korean, Filipino, and Indonesian civilians by the millions. Then despots like Pol Pot, Mao Tse-tung, Tito, Kim Il-sung, and others also began embracing execution as a tool of political reform. Unfortunately, the list of such atrocities goes on, and the primary similarity is that almost all of the perpetrators were communist or atheist. Now, over 3,000 human beings are being executed by abortion every single day right here in the United States. And many of those who defend this practice call themselves Christians. The problem is, they are either lying or they have fooled themselves into believing that God is neutral about whether or not a child He created is brutally torn limb from limb. The fact is, Christian doctrine clearly asserts that God is the author of life and that He is incapable of making mistakes. From that alone, the only rational conclusion is that when life exists in the womb, it is God's will that it be there. Obviously, the The support of legal abortion denies that reality and is therefore incompatible with Christian belief. From a true Christian perspective, life is a right inherited from God, not a privilege bestowed by human beings who can withhold it if they choose to do so. So make no mistake about it. A Christian cannot be pro-choice about the intentional destruction of innocent human life any more than they can be pro-choice about rape, robbery, slavery, incest, child abuse, etc. Any way you cut it, this is a Holocaust that is carried out by the godless and defended by the godless, just like almost every other Holocaust in the history of the world. Welcome back. All right, we've got first here our old friend, well, let's say longtime friend. I hate to say old friend.
That's a good way to place it.
Monica Miller, who was with us last month talking about this outrageous situation in Michigan, where they're finding babies in the dumpsters and all kinds of records and HIPAA violations and all this stuff. And we always tell everybody, keep us posted if something changes. Well, she kept us posted.
That's right.
And Monica's back with us. Hello, Monica.
Hi, good to be with you guys.
Nice to have you with us. And just yesterday, we got a lot of good news. Tell everybody.
Oh, I'm flying. This is 21 months' worth of effort that has come to the best possible conclusion it could have come to.
Well, tell us what happened.
Well, the Attorney General of Michigan, Bill Schuette, closed two abortion clinics here in Michigan, women's choice clinics, where abortions were performed through the 24th week of pregnancy. And it's the consequence of our pro-life activism. When we, first of all, I should say, a Lansing activist, Chris Veneklaus, back in February of 2010, so that's how far back this goes, searched the dumpster used by Women's Choice in Lansing, and he discovered the remains of 17 aborted babies thrown away in the trash. The mothers' names were on the bags, the world packs that these babies come in. And as a consequence of that, I teamed up with him for numerous subsequent trash dumpster searches, and we were coming up with medical waste, lots of patient records. So we started to preserve everything, catalog everything, photograph everything, and then finally we approached the Eaton County Sheriff's Department. They were very eager to do their own independent investigation, which they did, 4 months worth of their own trash dumpster searches. They came up with even more stuff, and in terms of patient records, they came up with the mother lode. It was outrageous what they found. Wow. We went to the Attorney General's office, and when the Attorney General was doing its own research and investigation into the goings-on with these clinics, they found out that the clinics were illegally incorporated. That was a good thing and a bad thing. The bad part of it is that because of the illegal incorporation, they actually could not charge the abortionists with the dumping of the patient records. I know that sounds ludicrous, but there was nobody to charge because there was no physician as part of the incorporation. Nobody was responsible for anything.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was outrageous. We waited a full year for the Attorney General to finally go after them on this faulty, improper incorporation. And God bless them, they did. They finally followed through. I don't mind saying there were times when I thought nothing was going to happen. Frustration was the only thing that I was experiencing for literally almost a year. But they did it, and the best possible outcome that the clinic owned by these two clinics, because there's the clinic in Lansing and then there's the sister clinic in Saginaw, owned by Richard Remond, they saw the handwriting on the wall, and they agreed to shut their clinics down, and that happened yesterday in Eaton County Court. The judge signed the consent orders, and the Remonds are forever barred from reincorporating any medical facility in the state of Michigan for the rest of their lives.
Nice.
Fantastic.
So we lost two abortion clinics yesterday.
And
two abortion clinics no longer exist in the state of Michigan, right?
That's great.
Well, Monica, congratulations. I know, we've had you on here before, and you've been working on this for a long time,
right.
and whatever little help we were able to give you, I'm just real proud of you.
I'd like to send people over to our website. We've got the whole thing right there on the home page. It gives a lot of details of how we did this. So that would be prolifesociety.com.
Okay, we'll put that up on the screen as we've done before. So people can go there. But anyway, congratulations. And now, Monica, take off the next couple of hours and then go find another one.
All right. I'll try a couple hours at least.
Okay.
This reminds
Thank you, Monica.
God bless you guys.
This reminds me of our project down here in Texas. Remember, we went through the trash and found all sorts of biohazard waste, aborted babies, HIPAA violations, and we brought it before the Texas Medical Board, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and that investigation is about 8 to 9 months old. And so we expect to see some disciplinary procedures, some closed abortion clinics, lack of funding, et cetera.
I was talking to Carol Everett about that just 2 nights ago.
Great. We're very excited about some of the things.
She's really pushing that, and we got some other projects that, matter of fact, I want to talk to you about with Carol.
For people that may not know, what is supposed to be done with the aborted babies if you don't put them in the dumpster?
Well, you're supposed to. Every state has medical guidelines for the disposal of medical waste, and that's what they're called, unfortunately. They're babies, but they're called medical waste. But it costs money to do that, and these people aren't going to spend money, so they just dump them. And like when we went up there and did that walkthrough in that facility in Kansas, and you could smell the dead babies in the drain. It was horrible when we went in there. And we did that. We got that whole segment that we did on LifeTalk showing that walkthrough of that place. You wouldn't. I wouldn't take my dogs into a vet clinic that was bad. That was that bad. But you know what? A veterinarian would never allow his facility to be that nasty.
Nor would the authorities. They have to meet better standards.
Yeah, they'd put them in jail. But anyway, we got people out there on the front lines, doing like what Monica's doing.
The best part, Monica was persistent. She didn't give up. She talked about those times she felt like it.
Yeah,
I've thought nothing was going. That's really the key to pro-life activism. It reminds you of the
whatever you're doing.
The parable of the persistent widow, keep knocking, keep asking, and even judges that don't fear God and don't care what people think will actually do what you ask them to do because you're being persistent.
Yep. And we're seeing, again, this is just a continuing trend. The number of abortion clinics that keep cratering in this country is...
Let's count them just in the last few days. We've got the late-term abortion facility that we exposed on National Boulevard in Los Angeles. It's where the clinical trials of partial birth abortion were taking place.
That's McMahon's.
McMahon's old place, then it was bought by Dodson and Celeste.
A 73-year-old abortionist dies, and they sell it to an 80-year-old abortionist.
So that one closed. Santa Fe Abortion Clinic is closing because the woman's retiring. She's doing abortions for 35 years. And then 2 in Michigan. And that's just that we know of.
In the last couple of days.
Last 2-3 days.
Right. The momentum is really starting to pick up. And the pro-aborts, by the way, we have these contacts because of our infiltration. And they'll be the first ones to tell you that the level of angst in the abortion industry is peaking. It's peaking. It's going through the roof.
There's going to be like the rats jumping off the sinking ship.
And they are.
Santa Fe, there was no miss.
Well, let's talk about what some of these nitwits are doing. Here's a copy of Orlando Women's Center, a coupon.
Pentagraph.
Yeah. Where you can get a $50 discount on your abortion if you have this coupon, if you'll come on Sunday and have your abortion. Yeah. I don't know how you even.
Honestly, look, Sunday is bad. Because we're Christians, but to an abortionist, it's just another day.
But what this reminds me of though is
it's a slap in the face.
Some of the things we've covered here in the past where they have price wars. 2 abortionists will get mad at each other and they'll start. And we had a deal it was in Kansas and Missouri. 2 abortionists competing. I think this was before you were even on LifeTalk. We had the ads. They had kept cutting prices and they were offering $99 abortions. One guy had gone down to $149 and his competition went down to $99.
Right.
And they're doing this kind of right on the corner, right on the price, come on down.
Like so they're trying to act like retail stores or something.
That's what they are, John.
Here's what's going on down in Florida. Remember, now Pentagraph owns 5 abortion clinics in the state of Florida. Right. He has recently lost his medical license. He does not have a license to practice his so-called medicine any place in the country. And so he's got to hire in these hacks. So, but there's only so many of these baby-killing dirtbags to go around. Right. So on a Sunday, most of these abortion clinics are closed. So he can bring these other hacks that are working, Monday through Friday someplace else and bring them in on a Sunday. So that's what's going on right there. Right, he's trying to fill his clinic up on a Sunday when he can't get an abortionist any other day.
I remember a couple of months ago we talked about the situation years ago in Louisiana where there was a silent auction for some sort of local nonprofit Remember that?
They auctioned off an abortion.
Planned Parenthood donated as part of the silent auction an abortion. And so you could go to the silent auction, you might be, bidding on Lord knows what.
Oh, my goodness.
But right here, Planned Parenthood had donated an abortion procedure, and so you could win an abortion on this silent auction down there.
Can you imagine your mother-in-law or somebody like that giving you a gift like that?
Well, listen, we've got some stuff here. I mean, these are all, in some of these outrageous statements. There's an article from one of these pro-aborts, and this woman is saying that she's a pro-abort, and she's saying she's a doula, and they're supposed to help with midwives delivering babies,
right.
But now they have doulas for the abortion industry and make you feel better about your product. There's a woman named Mary Mahoney who's a doula. This is in New York, and she's come out here and she's catching a lot of flack from the pro-aborts because she's saying, look, all these pictures that the pro-lifers show that we always claim are not legitimate, and the blown up graphic images. She says they are legitimate. I've seen them. I've seen this, so she's catching a lot of flack for that. But listen to this. You remember the woman the doctor we had on that we talked about, who was doing late-term abortions while she was pregnant.
Right,
remember that?
Right. And she had that feeling in her hand that went all the way through her spine.
Yeah.
That even her baby moved as she was dissecting the baby.
And she said that
at the same age.
Right.
She was doing an 18-week abortion when she was 18 weeks pregnant.
Right.
And she said she was fascinated because she said she's pulling out these parts and reassembling them in the Petri dish and said, that's what my baby looks like. Yeah. And the ability of these people to disconnect from reality. But this woman's saying, yeah, these pictures are legitimate. She said, when you see the procedure, you must decide as a pro-choice person whether you are in or out. And I have never been more in. That's her statement. Even after saying that, there's a picture of her, Mary Mahoney, and they're doulas.
Well, the silver lining here is the abortion industry is starting more and more to tell the truth. Right. The more we expose them, the more we force them into the situation of having to deny or admit the fact that they were killing babies.
We've got a guest that's going to. It doesn't faze them. We got a guest that's going to expose some of the stuff, and even talking about pentographs, she's done some stuff on that. Stacy, is it Transankos?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Stacy. I read an article that you wrote for, I guess it was Life News.
Yes.
Talking about this situation down in Florida and some other things that you had come across. Basically reaffirming some of the things that we've just talked about here.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you found, because it was really fascinating.
Well, the thing about it is, I was just Google searching. I have a blog, and I write about this stuff quite a bit, and I followed abortion statistics and things that go on. I read Life News a lot. I was trying to verify the 41% abortion rate in New York City, and I looked it up, and I noticed a line of ads over on the side of the Google page. And I started looking through them, and I was just appalled at what I was reading. I don't remember them advertising like this a couple of years ago. It does seem like they've changed their game, so to speak.
The one
that caught my attention in particular was one that said gentle abortions, 4 to 24 weeks, no pain, period, no memory, period, $360. And this is in New York City, and I looked and I went and read it, and sure enough, that's what they're advertising. And, they say gentle, so they make the woman feel better about it, but no pain, no memory. The memory thing, like, what are they trying to not remember if it's all so great?
If it's like health food, why wouldn't you want to remember it?
What's there to forget? But what really shocked me, and maybe I'm just coming up to date on this stuff, is they do an awful lot of general anesthesia in New York City. And I started looking around at all the abortion clinics I could find that were advertised online. They all advertise a lot the later-term abortions, up to 24 weeks. They advertise and they talk about the procedure, and the woman is under general anesthesia, and they don't advertise that they cost that much. You always hear they're like $4,000 or $5,000. No, they're saying up to like $1,700, depending on the size of the pregnancy. I just thought to myself, okay, I remember the Gosnell thing. That, even for people who don't think about abortion a lot, that horrified people. And I always try to reach the people in the middle. That's my target audience, like to wake them up. And it occurred to me that in New York, if women are, or anywhere, if women are totally out, and they can have an abortion at any time up to 24 weeks, which the doctor decides whether it is or not. There's no telling what goes on. We really don't know.
No.
It could be happening. What happened in Gosnell could be happening all over the United States.
Stacey, let me tell you, and the things you've identified have been going on for years. I've got Yellow Page ads going back 20 years in which they talk about the same kind of things. And the Gosnell situation is going on everywhere. I mean, this is not the anomaly. The only thing that's unusual about the Gosnell situation is that he got caught. That's the only thing that's unusual. But some of this stuff that you brought up and that we found in our own research is like we talked about when Tiller used to talk about managing pregnancies through miscarriage, induced miscarriage. He wouldn't call them abortion.
Never.
So these women could go away thinking, oh, I didn't have an abortion, I had an induced miscarriage.
Right.
And
whatever makes you feel better.
Here's one of them that we found. It's, we believe abortion does not have to hurt.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And the quote here, a gentle medical and surgical steps to remove fetal life support and cause fetal death before removing the pregnancy.
Yes.
There's about 10 lies in that one statement.
You couldn't find a longer way. I don't think I've ever heard of a longer way to step around the truth.
Right. But first off, fetal life support, the mother is the fetal life support.
Right.
Cause fetal death before removing the pregnancy. This is something that really makes me angry. I'll clean up the line. You cannot remove.
Everybody knows what that is.
You cannot remove a pregnancy. A pregnancy is a condition. Mm-hmm. It's not a thing. The baby is the thing.
And I'll tell you, having been there, and I keep looking at this gentle abortions, no pain, no memory. Mine has been almost 35 years, and it's plenty of pain and plenty of memory.
Right.
So yeah, it's like when you wake up, there is still pain, there is still memory. It doesn't go away. The fact that they're telling women this when they're walking in the door means they know.
Right.
They just want to get you in there and get your money.
It's very insulting, and
So no matter how much the soft lighting and relaxing music, the aromatherapy and a more holistic approach, you're never going to remove that terrible tragedy.
You're just reading from there.
I'm reading right from these ads.
Right.
I'm reading this one talking about best decision about abortion, the one that connects your head and your heart.
Your heart. Yeah, I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but I have noticed a lot of those clinics, in addition to using spa language, like it's a day at the spa having a pedicure, they shroud it in a lot of spiritual language.
Why do they need to do that if it's so great?
It's new age.
Right.
It's new age language. Mm-hmm. But listen to this one. Here's another one that you had found, Stacey, that we are quoting here. Quote: "Making a choice about your pregnancy can be a gift of learning and growth."
It's a gift.
Yeah, it's an invitation for you to develop a larger version of yourself.
Larger vision.
I don't know what that
Vision of yourself. It's a way to practice compassion and loving kindness toward yourself.
And what's so infuriating, like we're grown-ups, we look at that and we say, that is ridiculous. But imagine if you're a scared 16-year-old girl and you walk in and they're telling you this stuff.
It's all about selling it. They're going to sell it to somebody that might not otherwise think they're doing the right thing. They're just going to sell it.
Okay, from a different angle here, here's our competition, guys. Sidewalk counselors, pro-lifers, people that are working in crisis pregnancy centers. This is what you've got to come up against. A more holistic approach, aromatherapy, soft lighting, and music, soft music. That is what your competition is.
No pain. It feels like your insides are being
all
pulled
this
out
stuff
of you.
that you're talking about, Troy, you know what it reminds me of is, you remember when we did the video on Christy Stiles and her mother, Kay, narrated the video. One of the things she said there, Christy Stiles, for those who may not remember, we did a video called The Choice many years ago. She had an abortion on her 18th birthday and was left in a permanent vegetative state. And from overdose on anesthesia. And the guy was not an anesthesiologist. They didn't even have one in the clinic. And he never missed a day at the abortion mill. Never. He's still there. Name's Ron Kaczynski. He's still there to this day.
Still there.
Colorado.
But one thing that Kay said that always stuck with me, and she's not a pro-life activist. She'd never been involved. Well, she took Christy to the clinic. She was waiting in the waiting room when the ambulances pulled up. And they're telling her everything is fine. And she said, I knew everything wasn't fine. But anyway, she said, I thought abortion, making it legal was supposed to make it safe. She said, All it did is take the door off the back of the facility and put it on the front of the facility, and now you can bleed to death with Muzak in the background. And that's a very good analogy. You know, it went from a back door abortion mill to a front door abortion mill, and now you got soft music playing in the background. And that's how you kill your baby, and maybe you bleed to death while the music plays. And that's what all this nonsense is.
Right.
I don't know if you saw I did 4 of these pieces. There was one that also got me. They advertised that they're first not a clinic. They don't even want to be called a clinic.
What do they want to be called?
They're something else. I don't know.
Well, like you said,
they advertise a natural abortion. Natural. That's supposed to be very safe. A natural abortion. There's no disturbing sucking noise. It's a 5-minute procedure, and there's immediate recovery. They are literally bringing these girls in using that syringe device in early pregnancy and, you know, doing the abortion with them right there and sending them out, telling them they're immediately recovered. And if you do bleed a whole lot, well, that's something wrong. You need to come back in and have the procedure done again.
Listen,
this was in New York
back
City,
to advertising.
Too.
The abortion industry has done their market surveys, they've done their market studies, they've hired the consultants, and they found out everybody's aversion to abortion, and now they're combating it.
So we've won that battle.
We've won the battle, so now we have to win this battle.
Right, exactly. As they try to put this more warm, fuzzy, touchy-feely, new age type nonsense on it. Well, thanks for being with us, Stacey, and thanks for what you're doing. Hey, tell people where they can go and read your articles.
Okay, my blog is acceptingabundance.com.
Okay. And they can read the articles
I'm also sending these to Life News.
Okay, good, good. Well, you keep up the great work.
Okay, thank you. You too.
And thanks for joining us.
Okay.
Great.
Bye-bye.
It's some of these people, you tell people things like this and they think you got to be crazy. You're the crazy one because nobody could be doing these things and could say things like this. But they do.
That's because we're dealing mostly with a Christian audience. You have to get outside that realm and get into the gutter where these people live, where they're... Well, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Right.
And but Jesus says, "I've come to give life in it to the fullest."
Right. It's amazing. Thanks, guys. We'll be right back.
For almost 40 years, you've been told that the abortion issue is about choice and women's rights, reproductive freedom. But that's just marketing hype. And this explosive feature-length documentary proves it. It's called Maafa 21, and it's a gritty behind-the-scenes look at America's family planning establishment. Now, when you see their dirty little secrets and hidden motives dragged into the light, you'll finally know the real reason why abortion was legalized. But don't think this is about history. It's not. What you're going to see in this film is happening right here, and it's happening right now. With information that will absolutely take your breath away. Maafa 21 is going to challenge you, it's going to shock you, and it's going to make you angry. But when it's over, you will know things that America's politicians and power brokers never intended for you to know. And you will have seen things that the media is never going to show you. The fact is, this DVD is about to change the way you look at the battle over abortion. The cost is only $20, and you can order it on this website or by calling toll-free 1-800-800-LIFE. We'll pay for the shipping. So, place your order right now. It's time for you to know the truth about these people.
Welcome back. Johnny, we've had a couple of successes with Maafa 21. That continues to grow. I want to just give, we had a showing the other day at Georgia State University, and this is a very typical scenario. We got a follow-up email from this young man who had put this on, and his girlfriend said, presented Maafa 21 to an applied social psychology class at Georgia State. 17 people asked for more information at the end. 2 people changed their position from pro-choice to pro-life. And 1 black student said he wanted to help better educate his community and bought some extra Maafa 21s. Georgia State, these students, university said that Georgia State no longer trusts Planned Parenthood.
Wow.
Beautiful.
That's the kind of response that we're getting
that is beautiful.
from Alpha showings on these college campuses.
Well, I was invited last week. I spoke at Sisters for Life. This is a black organization that's on the
Sisters
street.
for Life?
Sisters for Life.
I like that.
Oh, and there's some
Catholic
sisters.
nuns, right?
No, they're not Catholic nuns. No, Angela Mentor is a black sister, and she's a fiery. I mean, I'm talking about in your face on the street, and so effective that she found out they could even hear her speaking, even though they're already inside. The abortionists had to come out and try to make her be quiet, And this group has really put out Mile for 21 like you wouldn't believe. And I enjoy speaking at the banquet because what they decided to do was they brought people who had seen Mile for 21, but also I spoke to a banquet where I was not speaking to the choir. Huh. That place was loaded with a bunch of liberal Democrats.
Oh, nice.
I love that banquet. That was what
Were they shocked?
In Louisville. Oh, well, not only the Marfas that I had with me, I actually just, they sold out very quickly at the end. Because Angela has a program, you're talking about a holistic approach. They do it, and they don't make no bones about it. If a young lady keeps the child, they make sure she gets medical service for a year. Wow. And while they was at their banquet, they handed out a scholarship to a girl who had kept her child and was going to college. Wow. I mean, this group was, it was such a blessing to see. It was such a blessing to see. And they're looking, and they're being housed in a church right now. So that was another blessing to see. I met the pastor, and this guy was, whoa. But they're looking for their own place, and that one of the crisis pregnancy centers is getting ready to move. And I'm thinking, boy, that crisis pregnancy centers, they should just turn it over to those folks. And just
now, you're telling me this girl is a liberal Democrat.
Yep.
And she's now on fire from Alpha 21.
Oh, no, but she just, I think she was pro-life somewhere before Alpha 21. But, once you see Alpha 21 and you're already on fire, it's like dynamite.
Right.
It's throwing gas
but she
on
not,
the fire.
but she not only made sure she made sure the black community has been watching it. That's what.
Is she still a liberal Democrat?
Yeah, she claims to be. Yeah, she is.
Well, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
If we make
but,
it
but I
It
mean,
doesn't matter about that.
but
listen,
this
you
sister
get
is
liberal Democrats on the pro-life side.
This sister is hardcore pro-life.
Trouble.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, she makes no bones about it. She was dynamic.
Yeah.
And another thing I noticed, Steve LaFemme, did I say his name right this time? Columbia, South Carolina. I'm getting people are actually, I hope we're not taking too much pressure from you on that mile for 21 mile, because people order from us too.
That's okay, that's fine.
And thanks to you, they order from us.
Right.
I'm serious. I really appreciate that a lot, because we're getting people like Steve that order them and give them to their legislators,
right,
black and white.
Right.
If they have some kind of little bill going through, they'll purchase about 100 of those things at times and send them out there across the country. So this is really working.
Right.
And there's little things that are happening that I believe the black community is slowly but surely waking up. What I'm hoping that we one day get to see is where we can really get this thing out to the community.
Right.
Because when blacks get involved in a thing, I tell people like a football game, put a black quarterback in there, you got a whole different thing in the game. And what we're seeing is that black churches that have been involved, they are involved. That's why I brag about Durham. They shut down an abortion clinic before it could even open.
Right.
They jumped on the one up there in Raleigh, and they stayed with it until it closed. As soon as it closed, now they're up in Chapel Hill. Now they're up in Chapel Hill.
All right.
Working on it. And now they're getting ready to spread. Every church that is now under him are taking on abortion clinics wherever they are.
Now, is that Bishop Fozart?
That's Bishop Fozart.
Great. And we know he's been on fire with Martha.
And you got Bishop Wooden, who actually, and this is a Church of God in Christ church, upper room, that showed a Martha 21 to the entire congregation for a Sunday morning service.
Nice.
Wow. Right.
And we're talking about a church that had about 2,000 or 3,000 people.
Right.
So it's not, so there's movement that's going on, and these guys.
Now, are you seeing, I want to remind people about our racial targeting survey that we did. And by the way, Planned Parenthood is making all these statements prior to this saying, oh, we don't target the black community, we don't do it, they're lying, and we've got our own information. Since this thing has come out, Planned Parenthood has not had one official word about it. They're not saying anything because we got the goods on them with this report. Right. And of course, everybody knows they can go to our website and read it. Just download it right there. It's 24 pages long. It's the first thing that pops up on the website. Yes. But we're getting now, Johnny, we're starting to get as many responses almost from that as from MAFA 21. People are calling saying, Well, this just confirms.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We're starting to hear a lot of that.
Mark, I tell you, one of our
by the way, before you say it,
okay.
I want to remind people, too, if they don't have a computer, they can't download it, they can call us and we'll send them a copy free. We've got it printed. So anyway, go ahead.
Beautiful. Margarita Dennis, she's a Hispanic that works with Learn up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And on the streets, I mean, this sister on fire, everything. And she was trying to get her church involved. Now, she goes to a predominantly black church. And the pastor, well, she's going to get some movement there. But I tell you what, the thing that blessed her when she saw that targeting, that racial targeting, here she is a Hispanic, and I put that in here, she goes, oh, my goodness. I'm glad I'm working with y'all because they're trying to kill us, too. Look at that. Right. She took great notice. If they didn't find a black community, they showed zero on the Hispanic community, too.
Exactly.
And I think it's really time for the Hispanics to wake up on this issue.
Yep.
You know, because you've really noticing where they're placing these abortion clinics. And when you click on that particular thing with those zip codes, all of them there, and you listen to what, you know, you had to do this because they challenged you. That's the only thing they could challenge Marfa 21 about.
That's right. That's the only thing they could get on Marfa 21, they thought.
Yeah.
And so we spent the time and money on this, and this was a heck of an undertaking because we had over 1,400 zip codes we had to analyze, and you had to do 4 calculations per zip code. So it was an incredibly time-consuming deal, and we actually hired an outside company to gather the raw data for us from the Census Bureau, and then Renee and I, in my office here, analyzed all the zip codes and put the report together. And since then, they have said nothing. They've gone into hiding. What can they say? Yeah. This isn't even our figures. These are Census Bureau figures. We just compiled them.
I love it when you shut the enemy down.
Yep. Right. Well, anyway, we've got another report it's not quite finished yet, but by the time people get this show, it should be ready to go out, and you're doing some proofing on it. And, you know, one of the things that the pro-aborts have been very good about is beating up the pro-lifers for the very rare instances of abortionists being shot, like Tiller or somebody. There's been 8 of them in 40 years.
But most people think there must be hundreds.
Most people think, we're all building pipe bombs and grenade
Every time you say
launchers.
you're this is years ago, but when you say you're pro-life, they say, well, you're not one of those doctor shooters and clinic bombers, are you?
Yeah. So they've done a good job of making the tail wag the dog, make it look like this is a bigger problem. But let me tell you what is a big problem, and they're not doing anything about it, and they're not going to do anything about it. And that is the issue of women being killed or beat to a pulp because they refuse to have abortions. Now, we've covered this on LifeTalk many times. We've had months where we had 2 or 3 in 1 month that we reported on.
There's been a news report where every single story was about it.
Right. We've had 1 month where every story was about this. So we decided to do a research project on this, and we started gathering up what we could, and we chose to make it short and to make it more palatable to read, to only talk about the ones where women died. And then we only talked about those that were representative samples. This report does not have all of the ones that we found. It only has a representative sample of them. But there are 80 of them here. 80 stories of women who've been killed because they would not have abortions. Now, it's tempting to say, well, the abortion industry isn't responsible for that. Because the girl doesn't even show up at the abortion clinic. But here's the reality. The overwhelming majority of them are going to show up at the abortion clinic because most of them are going to go along with the threat.
Right.
If you threaten 1,000 people and say, I want you to do X, whatever X might be, in this case, have an abortion, and if you don't, I'm going to beat you to death, or I'm going to shoot you, or I'm going to stab you, or I'm going to kill you in some other brutal fashion, of those 1,995 of them are going to do it. That's human nature. Self-preservation says when somebody threatens your life, you're going to do what they tell you to do. So that means that when you start looking at this number that we have here, these are only the ones who say, no, I won't.
Right.
The vast majority of them are going to wind up at the abortion clinic. Now, somebody says, well, how do they know that the girl's been, forced to have this abortion against her will? I'm telling you something. Well, first off, they don't care. As long as the money comes in, that's what they care about. But the fact is, you put me or any reasonably intelligent person in front of a woman whose life is being threatened unless she does something that she does not want to do, and there's no way that I won't know that woman's got some stress or duress. Something's going on wrong here. So don't tell me you're going to put these women in a waiting room of an abortion clinic and then bring them back into the counseling, and the husband that's threatening her or the boyfriend or whoever it might be that's threatening to kill her is sitting out in the waiting room, and that you're going to be able to counsel this girl and not know it, then either you're not doing any counseling or you are the world's worst counselor. One or the other has to be true.
Well, they're not counselors, they're salespeople.
Yeah,
they're salespeople.
He won't let her go in there without him.
Right. And see, we're putting this report out and people say, well, what do you want them to do? I think one of the things we need to have is a legislation passed that requires all abortion clinics to have a form created by the state that tells a woman you cannot be forced into having an abortion. If you're being forced into having this abortion, contact the following number. Give them a number to call, a local 800 number, or whatever you want to give them. And have them be required to sign at the bottom a statement saying, I am not under any duress from an outside person. I'm not being threatened. I'm not being forced. Nobody's making me do this. Make them sign that and make that form make it a requirement before they can do an abortion on her that she has to have this form signed, and that this form can only be given to the girl in private.
You're dreaming, and that cuts into their profits. And if there was only one dead woman over that, even if there's one, are the women, the now counts, whoever they are, the abortion rights people that are screaming about choice, saying that was her choice and you killed her? Have you ever heard anything like that?
Because this is the choice mentality. Mm-hmm. Right. See, who are the pro-choice people in these scenarios? The men.
Right.
The men are the pro-choice people. They're saying you will have the choice, which is abortion.
That I want you to do.
And if you don't have this choice, I will kill you and the baby.
Right.
And I tell you, it's aggravating when you've been out in front of an abortion clinic and you see a guy dragging a girl in, and you see what kind of car he got, and you realize this is not a poor guy.
Right.
He values that car more than
he's probably married to somebody else. He's taken this gal he's been having a thing with in there because he doesn't want his life messed up. But what I have found hysterical, if you can laugh at this, is one after another in the men's testimony they're giving the police or whatever, the investigation, they go, I don't want my life changed. And I'm going, is it changed now, Jack? On death row?
You got life without parole.
Yeah, it's a little bit different now.
And it's not just men who are having affairs. They're dragging their daughters in there. They're dragging their wives in there. They've got nice, beautiful homes, cars, etc., and they don't want the baby. The baby is the problem. Remember, the pro-choice mentality is the baby is the problem. Yeah. The baby is the issue, always, ever, forever.
And the men buy into it.
We don't want the baby.
And they take them and...
Yeah,
it's amazing. But this is great. I can't wait till it gets out. I love having it all compiled in one thing to go, look at this, read, take that, read that.
You're the only one here besides me that's read it all.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, it's great.
This is pro-choice. You've got to work the word choice into the title of this report.
We're the ones with the choices. We offer parenting, we offer adoption.
True choice. But as Mark has always said, we need to make pro-choice toxic.
Right.
And that's what we've done for years. The one choice the abortion industry gives is death. That's it. And if you don't kill that baby, then sometimes the boyfriend's going to kill you and the baby.
And like you said, the ones here listed are the ones that died, and aren't there just a bunch that you came across that didn't die?
Something you mentioned right now, Troy, remind me, years ago I did a radio program, and I just said something that, you know how sometimes, and you've done this, you'll be on an interview, and you'll say something, and you think it's just no big deal, and then all of a sudden that's the big deal. That's what everybody's talking about. Now you're doing 10 shows on that. Right. I had said on one of these shows one time, because I was talking about this subject, this was years ago, and I said, if you're a young lady and you're dating, it's very important for you to know what your boyfriend's position on abortion is. Mm-hmm. Ask him. Mm-hmm. If he's pro-choice, you better consider the possibility that he might be pro-choice about you too. Mm-hmm. And that's what here it is. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, I said that, and I was on a pro-aborts talk show, and I said that, man, and she went berserk, absolutely berserk. And then a lot of other people picked up on it, and AFA picked up on it, and they ran with it. And then I've got all these other reports and all these other calls coming in to do these shows. And it turned out to be true. Mm-hmm. What I was saying is exactly right. If he's pro-choice about your baby, he might be pro-choice about you if you don't do the right thing in his mind. And that's what we're seeing right here. Now, we've got only 80 in here, but that is exactly 10 times the number of abortionists who've been killed, and yet nobody knows about these women. These women don't count. Only the abortionist counts.
You started this conversation talking about so-called pro-life violence. This is pro-choice violence. This is another example of pro-choice violence. Not only are they killing 3,500 babies a day, but they're killing women too. Right. And in the words of Father Pavone, those people that call us violent, you can shut your mouth. Right. That's Father Pavone. Shut your mouth.
They may not be killing these women, which they're not, but they know what's going on, and they're not doing anything to stop it. And I'll tell you something else. When we propose legislation to deal with this around the country, they will be the ones fighting it. I promise you that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to know, where are you women out there that are pro-choice, pro-abortion, fighting for these women that have made their choice? Right. It just unnerves me.
There is a woman's right to choose, but there's no woman's right not to choose. That's right. That's their view.
As long as you choose killing your baby, then we'll back you up. But if you choose something else,
right to choose in parentheses abortion. Right.
As long as you make the right choice, you got a right to choose.
It's I was getting madder by the minute, and I thought, I'm just in the B's.
Right. Because we got it alphabetical.
Alphabetical. Yeah.
Right. Right. By the time you got to the Z's, you were.
I was over the top. So.
Right. Well, anyway, we're going to make this available to people. It should be. Hopefully, it'll be finished and ready to put out there by the time this show is done. But if it's not, by the time this show is out there, if it's not, it'll be just within days. But hopefully we'll have it done by then, and it'll be free too. Yes, it'll be free, just like the racial targeting report is free.
Another great piece of work by Life Dynamics.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it, guys. Great show. We're in the Christmas season now, obviously, and it's kind of a time when everybody reflects on their life and on the gifts they've been given, and we thank God for the things that we have. But sometimes we forget the most important things. And in the battle over abortion, that's really true. It's true for all of us. We've had this discussion. I've had it with Troy and with Johnny and with Cherie before. Sometimes we forget what this battle is really about. We get caught up in the day-to-day. We're winning over here. We had a setback over here. We're losing this deal. We're ahead over here. And we kind of see it like a football game. And in reality, that's not what it's about. What it's about is the babies who are being killed. And we have to continually remind ourselves of that. And, one of the things that I don't want to take the edge off of your Christmas this year, or any other year for that matter, but I want you to think about the fact that more than 1 million babies this year who should be having their first Christmas aren't. There was no first Christmas for them. And there never will be a first Christmas. And I just think back on my own daughter. We got her in the middle of the year. Her half-year birthday is December 24th. So she was 6 months old on her first birthday. But her first Christmas. And I can still remember, what an exciting time that was. And we all have children. We remember their first Christmases. That's always such a joyous time. But these children don't get that. And, they were created by God and sent to this earth. And I don't know if you ever think about this, but the only human contact they ever had on this earth was with the mother who didn't want them and the goon that their mother paid to kill them. They left this earth with that being the only human contact they ever had. And even when you see, and people say to me, well, is abortion a worse murder than, let's say, somebody killing a 40-year-old man? And yes, it is. That 40-year-old man, as horrible as that might be, or a 40-year-old woman that might be murdered, they had a life. There were people that loved them. There were people that they loved. They had experiences. These little babies get sent here, and as I said, they only have human contact with two people. They go to their graves. They go to the garbage disposal. They go to the dumpster, having only had contact with two human beings, and neither one of them wanted. One of them was making money off killing them, and the other one didn't want them. That's a tragic situation, and all I'm asking you is to think about that this Christmas. Think about the fact that at our nation's Christmas table, there are empty high chairs. And until we win this battle, there will continue to be empty high chairs. And I just want you to think about that this Christmas and join the rest of us here in rededicating ourselves to ending this tragedy. And as I say every month, we're not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how this killing stopped. So you guys have a great holiday, and we will see you in January.